Nigeria's failure to qualify for the 2026 FIFA World Cup goes beyond sporting disappointment, delivering a major financial setback for the Super Eagles and the Nigerian Football Federation. Missing the expanded 48-team tournament means forfeiting at least $10.5 million, that's 15.5 billion naira, in guaranteed prize and preparation funds. Historically capable of reaching the round of 16 or beyond, Nigeria could have earned significantly more. And we have joining us in the studio now, News Central's sports editor in person of Babatunde Koiki. Great to have you in. And joining us from Abuja, we also have Samuel Yekomi, lead research and insights at Northern Berger. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Right, and I'll begin with Koiki here with us, Babatunde. Let us into how significant the failure to qualify for 2026 World Cup, how significant is it, especially from a financial perspective?
Well, you just said it. Significant in the sense of we're losing, the Nigerian Football Federation is losing directly as much as 15 billion naira, which is a significant amount of money when you consider that the budget of the Nigerian Football Federation projected for 2025 was 17.6 billion. Now that's almost, to my calculation, as much as 87% of their annual budget. But normally when every federation goes to the FIFA World Cup, the monies that they garner is used for developmental projects in order to build sustainable structures that will endure beyond the World Cup cycle, which the Nigerian Football Federation have historically never done. For every single World Cup that they've gone to, they've always come back with a tremendous amount of money, prize money earned for just participating alone, but they can never or have never been able to point to one project or one particular a project that they can say that they've done that is sustainable, that is enduring with the money that they've earned. Now we hear that they're building a players' hostel beside the NFF headquarters in Abuja, which in all honesty is absolutely ridiculous, because these are players who play in high-profile clubs. They are used to high-profile travel, high-profile accommodation. Now you are building a hostel for them to live in Nigeria, maybe for junior teams, but not for players of the senior national team. I honestly feel that what they could have done was have asked the federal government for land somewhere within Abuja, maybe Meitama or Sokoro, and gone to one of these, international hotel chains and asked them that, look, this is our own equity contribution. Build a 5-star hotel here. 6 times in a year, just give us an entire floor for the national teams of Nigeria and pay us maybe a $1 million annual subscription fee or licensing fee, which would have been an enduring and lasting source of income for the Nigerian Football Federation. But unfortunately, they show that critical financial thinking has never been their forte.
And from what you're saying, you believe that it should be handled as some sort of business in itself, because isn't that what it is? Or is it more than that?
I'm gobsmacked that you're asking me that. Sports, I mean, the gentleman with us can also confirm that sports is a multi-billion-dollar global industry, which Nigeria unfortunately has failed to tap into over the last few years. And when you look at the fact that they have not built a sustainable and properly run and well-articulated sports policy that they can implement over the last few years, it shows that there's quite a lot still missing in the Nigerian football and sporting ecosystem. You look at the English Premier League itself, it is a multi-billion-dollar financial enterprise that brings together people from around the world. I mean, there's lots of employment for groundsmen, ticketing, security, match day stewards. The number of Nigerian students who are studying in the UK alone who are match day stewards, it has saved countless lives. And we cannot even replicate something like that even here in Nigeria. So it shows that we are not treating it as a business, and that is why it is always regarded as something like play, something that we never really put a lot of emphasis on.
I'm coming to you now, Samuel, looking at handling our football team as a business. What are some of the direct monetary losses from the Nigerian Football Federation due to, well, let's start with missing the tournaments and generally mismanagement of the whole enterprise?
Yeah, I think quite spot on there. I think our guest here also had made mention to a huge amount of losses up to the tune of 15 billion in Naira, right? That could have come in just as a result of participating, and that is not coming in. But I think it goes way beyond just what we get from FIFA as a result of participating in the competition. Beyond that, you look at things around businesses that are also able to splurge on advertisement as a result of participating, or as a result of Nigeria participating in the competition. I think we've missed now for the last two competitions. The last time was in Russia, 2018. And then you go back in time, you realize, you see the likes of Coca-Cola, ITO, and a host of many other companies like MTN also doing advertisements around the World Cup competition. DSTV subscription goes up during that period. So businesses tend to generally move up. But as a result of we not participating again, we'll see ourselves being at the sidelines of what other economies around Africa and around the world might be enjoying at that point in time. So yes, it's a huge loss. From the bulk sum that we get from the FIFA, but beyond that, from an economic point of view, where a lot of economic activities ride on just the World Cup to see a lot of more buy pressure, more activities, and more participation, we're not going to be seeing that going into 2026, and I think that's a huge loss.
If I can just add something now, and this failure to qualify for the FIFA World Cup is already trickling down to even the Africa Cup of Nations. Normally at this time of the year, you would have seen tremendous amount of adverts and sponsorships for people who are going for the Africa Cup of Nations, which is starting in just 48 hours in Morocco. But because of the failure of the Super Eagles to qualify for the FIFA World Cup or even qualify for the Intercontinental Playoffs, a lot of the major, the financial majors, the major sponsors, the betting companies, they've been rather shy in terms of sponsoring a lot of the AFCON programs, either on TV or radio. Their financial spend or sponsorship spend has reduced dramatically. By this time of the year, normally, you would have seen a huge crowd of people heading towards Morocco, sponsored by many of these companies. Many of them, I can tell you for free, because I've been involved in marketing our AFCON programs in multiple agencies and multiple sponsors. Not a single one of them has come through. For the very simple reason that all of them are still feeling very sad that the Super Eagles of Nigeria, they don't qualify for the FIFA World Cup. And by extension, they believe that even the AFCON participation is going to be a blowout. They're not expecting too much from them.
So not only is this affecting the game as a business, but the businesses built around the game itself.
Absolutely.
So let's look at the absence of affected players. How might the absence, how do you see affecting player market value and potential transfer deals, even abroad?
Is that me?
Yes,
well,
yeah.
The honest truth is that I think there's a very popular Yoruba proverb that says, the honest truth is that whether you show up or you don't show up, the game will go on. There are still people who are going to put themselves in the shop window. There are still going to be scouts from multiple clubs across the world and still looking for the next best thing coming out of Africa. So it doesn't really change the fact that it is still one of the biggest shop windows for both clubs and players and agents to get, to tap into. The value of transfers from the African continent has gone up significantly year on year, despite whether there are competitions or not. But remarkably, a lot of them always make it always seems to have a significant spike, as much as 15 to 20% in terms of player market value, especially after every Africa Cup of Nations, because, like I said, it's the biggest shop window on the African continent. And you also look at the fact that Morocco is basically an hour, 30 minutes, 2 hours from major European capitals. So you can imagine the large influx of people who will be coming from Europe to come and watch these players. And also the fact that Morocco is one of the premier tourist destinations on the African continent. You can expect that a lot of people from across the continent will still be there as well. So it doesn't really change anything. Player market values will continue to increase, and many of the clubs will still be willing to do business, but this is the mid-season transfer window. So a lot of these players or clubs might be unwilling to let go of their players because there might be too little time to get a replacement. And usually what happens is that if you're forced to sell this player, you sell it at a premium. Normally, if a player costs $10 million in the summer, but because it's the mid-season and you're forced to sell or you can't get a replacement in time, the fee can as much as double. So you can expect that there will be significant values for player transfers if and when business is done.
All right, we'll definitely be watching to see how all of this pans out. The conversation continues. Stay with us, gentlemen. We're going on a break right about now. Exploring Nigerian football beyond just leisure and sports, but as a business specifically, we have the pleasure of having Babatunde Koiki, and of course joining us from Abuja, we have Samuel Oyekomi. Samuel, I'm coming to you now, and from an investment standpoint, do you see repeated World Cup absences, affecting long-term investment in Nigerian football infrastructure?
Yes, I believe so, right? So when you look at the NFF basically on its own, where do their funding come from? Look at the likes of FIFA, CAF, and then a mix of it from the Nigerian government. So a huge part comes from outside the country, and is a function of how exposed your team is. I like the fact that Mr. Bartley had mentioned how that has the fact that we are not participating in the world football stage has eroded some of the values of our players, and we don't have the opportunity to also export our talents, especially those in the local leagues. And if you don't put them out there, we don't have the global brands who might be able to endorse them or bring some form of fundings to, of course, to Nigerian players, and that's a huge blow for us. So yes, it significantly impacts us. It impacts how much of investment you would see come towards the NFF, and how well the NFF might be able to have fundings in their capacity to be able to do what they ought to be able to do in terms of building and maintaining our stadiums, for example. Also ensuring that to a large extent too, the Nigerian leagues too are able to develop to the capacity of the likes that we see in the likes of Kenya and South Africa, which we are not. We doesn't seem like we are getting close to, and that's because there's pretty much no strategy around how the business of football is supposed to work. I think it started off as a passion, but we need to now start thinking away from passion and understanding that football is also a business. If the likes of England and Europe are doing it significantly to the point whereby it is outperforming the growth that you see in most economies in terms of GDP, that tells you that there's a lot of monies that needs to be made there. Businesses make a huge amount. I mean, clubs make a huge amount of money just by doing business, either through sponsorship in terms of front jerseys, sponsorship, even side jerseys, sponsorship, tickets to view, television viewing rights, and a host of many other things. The likes of Nike, Adidas, and the whole lot pay a lot of money for players to be able to wear their brands to play on the pitch, and we won't have that as much if we are not seen at the world stage. Of course, the thinking for any business is that the more people have to watch you, then the more visibility for their business. If you're playing African football, the chance is that you don't have as much visibility as playing in the world, where more than the 1 billion people that you have in Africa would have access to those players and what they do. So again, it's quite not so positive for us.
And let's now turn to the ripple effect, economic ripple effect on sports tourism, merchandising, and also other local businesses. Let us into what we're losing out there.
Well, there's quite
huge. I'm sure by the time you think of estimation, there's no public figure out there that speaks to the estimation of how much is made. But I reckon that's a whole lot. If you look at NFF budgets annually, probably around the region of 20 billion or 25 billion annually, and a whole lot of that, of course, comes from both FIFA, CAF, and the government. But when you look at it from a business side point of view, I mentioned earlier that sponsorship for World Cup, you have organizations and businesses who sponsor fans who are able to go watch those football live, irrespective of the countries where they are being played. And then beyond that, you have people who want to probably just sponsor in terms of drinks. So you have the likes of Coca-Cola coming up. They'll have the likes of telecommunications also sponsoring, television stations also sponsoring, radio stations also have a lot to do during that period. And I also reckon News Central also have a lot to do during this period. But it speaks a lot more when your nation is playing in those tournaments for you to be able to headline some of those activities. And that's huge business. That's money that is flowing out of our pockets that is not being utilized because we are not there. And it's quite unfortunate, but then that's where we find ourselves. I would expect that if we are able to find ourselves in those better competitions going forward, hopefully in the next 5 years, of course, that should have some huge positive impact in terms of economic and business activities as we go on.
Well, I'm coming to you now, Kweki, and we know that we have taken a loss already, but how can we begin to mitigate some of these losses financially, right? And also attract alternative revenue streams after such a setback?
Okay, so let me just quickly give you a small analogy. When Nigeria played Rwanda in the World Cup qualifier in Adamahoro Stadium in Kigali, Nigerians from all over the world flew into Kigali to watch that match. They were selling executive boxes for $2,000. The Nigerians bought them out. The Nigerians from the diaspora bought them out. when they found out that the Nigerians were buying everything hand over fist, they raised the prices to $4,000. Nigerians still bought them out. What does that tell you? If you have a well-structured, competitive, really good Nigerian national team playing anywhere in the world, Nigerians will follow. I give you another example. The Wembley Stadium in London is owned by the English FA through one of their subsidiaries. Now, this stadium alone generates between $200 and $300 million annually from what? Other off-field activities, NFL games, Taylor Swift concerts, the number of boardrooms and weddings that are board meetings and weddings that are held in that stadium annually are beyond count. It shows that even FAs can set up sustainable structures that can continue to add to their revenue beyond government. So until we begin to see football as a business, and until we have a Nigerian football ecosystem powered by a Nigerian Football Federation that really understands its place in the scheme of things, which is enabling the business of football, nothing will change. And first and foremost, they have to build a strong, competitive Nigerian national team that anybody is willing to follow from across the world, that sponsors are fighting themselves in order to be associated with. That is one. Then two, they also have to look for sustainable structures whereby their own revenue can be guaranteed on an annual basis beyond government. So that's the list I can say.
And unfortunately, our time is fast spent. I know there's so much that we can begin to explore, but I'm going to end with you, Samuel. And in just a minute, how do you think the government, the private sector, can also support and cushion the financial blow on Nigerian football?
Yeah, so I think first it starts with understanding, on the piggyback of what Mr. Babatunde has said, right? We need to start looking at it as a business. And that means that government needs to start taking a step backward and ensuring that private sector come in. Because, of course, when you have private sector taking the charge, they pretty much see it as a capitalist system where profit needs to be made. And then you start seeing the thinking. So when you look at the likes of Chelsea, for example, see the way Blue Co Group is handling Chelsea business, every decision that is being made, right? And I think that's what we should start thinking of for the Nigerian Football Federation too.
And hopefully they're listening and they do just that. But thank you so much for your time. Samuel Yekomi, Lead Research and Insights, Northern Berger, joining us from Abuja. And in the studio, Babatunde Koiki, our sports editor.
Thank you.
A pleasure, gentlemen.